Okay, well, first I want to start with a thank you to Uri for organizing such a fascinating conference and an apology for not being there. I really wanted to be there, especially to hear whether amoebas can do otherwise, a topic that I never would have imagined before. So I look forward to reading that paper in the future. But what I want to talk to you during my time is a particular problem in the same area as some of the other issues that we've talked about, and yet it's distinct. So I want to put it in context first. Let me see if I can change this now. Yeah, there we go. So I take it that in this area of free will and moral responsibility, there are a number of different challenges. One challenge is the one typically discussed under the heading of free will, about whether our choices or wills are caused by what came before them, by previous states of the world, or by external circumstances acting on them. Notice that that's what happened before our choice or will. What I want to talk about instead is the fundamental causation, which is instead about what happens after our wills, whether our wills or choices can cause anything. I believe that this is the topic which is raised by the limit experiments, by all the discussions of the timing of wills, and so those issues are not really about free will at all. But I'm not going to talk about limit. I've done that in other things. What I want to talk about today is a different challenge within this second issue, mental causation. And in particular, it's the challenge of epiphenomenalism. So two classic figures who raised this issue are Nietzsche, who said, the will no longer moves anything, it merely accompanies events. And T.H. Huxley said, feeling with all volition is not the cause of the voluntary act, but simply the symbol that state of the brain is the immediate cause of that act. So notice that both of them are suggesting that all of the real causal work is done at the lower physical level, and mental events don't do anything. Well, if that's true, then great, we've got a free will. But our free will, if it's not active, if it's impotent, then it's hard to see why that would give us any kind of moral responsibility for our actions if our choices did not play any role in the production of those actions. That's just an appeal to intuition, but it can be spelled out if people have questions. And this issue has been around for many centuries, even before Nietzsche and Huxley. The most recent version of it is by Jaegwon Kim, who raised what he calls the exclusion model. And the idea is that if you're a physicalist, believe in the closure of the physical world, for every physical event or property that has a sufficient cause at a time also has a sufficient physical cause at that time. You also believe in irreducibility, and I'll talk about the arguments for that later in just a minute. Every mental property is distinct from every physical property. Notice that's about properties, not about particular tokens or particular events. If the mental is not reducible to the physical, it still has to explain how they're connected, and the typical claim is supervenience, that every mental property is realized or instantiated in some physical property. So anything that has that physical property has the mental property, not conversely. And then the crucial premise in Kim's problem is the exclusion principle, which says that if a physical event has a sufficient cause, it does not have any distinct sufficient cause at that time, except in cases of overdetermination. In 5, there's not overdetermination, at least not in every case of mental causation. So the idea should be pretty clear. If the mental is the physical, and if, as number 2 irreducibility says, and if you can't have 2 because it's not overdetermined, then if you've got a physical cause, which you have to according to closure, then you're not going to have a mental cause as well. We just make it clear this problem, this exclusion problem, is not a problem for dualists who reject physicalism, because they can just deny closure. It's not a problem for reductive physicalists, but they can just reject reducibility. It is a problem for non-reductive physicalists who accept both closure and irreducibility. But that's a very popular view that a lot of people hold, I think, for good reason. So that's what makes this a serious problem. The standard solution, which has been very popular in the last few decades, really refers to multiple realizability and the importance of capturing the right level of generality in our causal claims. So just to give a homely example, you can have a dollar can be realized in 4 quarters or in dimes, or in 2 quarters and 5 dimes, or whatever. But let's just stick with 4 quarters and 10 dimes. Those are 2 ways of realizing the abstract kind, a dollar. And so suppose that Ulrich asked me to loan him a dollar because he wants to get a drink out of a vending machine. And I reach in my pocket and I have 4 quarters and I have 10 dimes. And I give him the 4 quarters and he says, thank you, buys a drink, and enjoys the drink. Well, what caused him to say thank you? What caused his happiness? What caused his ability to buy a drink? One answer is that I gave him a quarter, because after all, that's what I did. But another answer is that I gave him a dollar. And it turns out that if you think about causation in terms of counterfactuals, and even in people who think that counterfactuals are not enough for causation, think that certain counterfactuals have to hold. And one of them is that if I had not given 4 quarters, then he would not have said thank you. But actually, since he's my friend, if I had not given 4 quarters, I would have given him the $10. And so it looks like what causes him to say thank you is not the specific deal offer I gave 4 quarters. Instead, what causes him to say thank you is that I gave him a dollar, because that's what he needed in order to get a drink. So this is all about dollars, it's not about dimes, but the same principle can apply to dimes. If a mental state can be realized in different base states, as a dollar can be realized in different points, then mental properties can capture the level of generated relevant causation of an act. So I want to discuss that if clause first, and then the then clause. There are lots of arguments that give for multiple realizability of mental states. Some of them very bad, but one of them I want to focus on because I think it's the strongest. And that's the argument from recordings of particular neurons. So this was a study by Enoch Freed, recently 2011, where he had electrodes in epilepsy patients doing basically the living task, moving their hands. And you can see each of these plots as a single neuron, and on the y-axis is the different trials. So what this shows is that on different trials, where these people took themselves to be doing the same thing and did not feel any different, at least as far as they could tell, when they performed this simple action of moving their wrist. Nonetheless, different neurons are in different trials. It's not that the same neurons, exactly the same neurons, in each trial, and that causes, again, it's like, if enough neurons in this set of a couple of hundred in the supplementary motor area fire, if enough of them fire, then the hand will move. And it looks like a lot of our brain works that way. So dynamic systems theory suggests that it's always at the population level, a group of neurons that make things happen. They represent this computationally by having each neuron represented, its firing rate represented on a different dimension in a multi-dimensional space. And as long as the firing of those neurons fall within a certain state space within that computation, then the hand will move. But it's not a particular set of neurons any more than it's a particular set of coins that realizes a dollar. What matters is that something of that abstract kind happens. That's what seems to have relevance. And as a result, you get people saying things like, a dynamical description is currently a description of activity at the population level, not at the particular level. Or a couple of philosophers, key feature of such dynamical models is that they allow one to abstract away from the causal, mechanical, aggregate micro details to predict the quality of behavior. So it's not the specific realizer, it's the general kind. And my claim is that that general kind can be a mental state. To show how this works, just imagine that you're about to take a shower, and all of a sudden, the shower scene in Hitchcock's Sigtuna movie, very scary scene, so your recollection of that scene causes you to feel fear, which causes you to go lock the door to the bathroom to make sure that nobody comes in before you're finished with your shower. Well, then, if multiple realizability is right, then that recollection of the scene and also that fear do not have to be realized within a particular set of neural offerings. Instead, it needs to happen only if something within that general pattern occurs. That's what the mental state is really all about, not the realizer, but the more abstract pattern. So then the shower feels fear, a mental state, goes and walks over and locks the door, the physical state. Both of those are caused by recalling the mental scene, and it doesn't matter which brain state realize that memory. So that means that mental state can capture the level of generality relevant to causation. And when they do, we want to say that the memory of the scene is what causes the mental effect as well as the physical. But this is a problem, because now, that's the standard solution, but it leaves a real problem. If we get a mental event as the cause, we have to ask, what happens to the physical cause? Well, if the higher level mental cause is working, then either the physical cause has to be a second cause alongside the mental, or it's not playing the causal role at all. If there's a second cause alongside the mental, then it looks like we get over-determination. But if it's not a cause at all, then we lose physical closure. So two of Kim's principles mean that, well, you've got a problem still. And that's what people traditionally solve. In order to solve this deep problem, we actually need to look at causation more carefully. Causation is usually seen as a two-place relation. Say that one event causes another event. But actually, some reason is actually a four-place relation. C rather than star causes E rather than Easter. That's the way it should be analyzed when we're talking. Of course, in everyday life, you don't talk that way. But we're doing serious metaphysics and philosophy, and we ought to. How do we need to? Well, a couple examples are typical. James smokes moderately and gets cancer. Her moderate smoking causes for cancer. Well, wait a minute. It doesn't seem that she would say her moderate smoking caused her cancer because she smoked immoderate or heavily. Instead, she would still have gotten cancer. But you also don't want to say her moderate smoking causes for cancer because it doesn't cause her cancer, because if she hadn't smoked at all, she wouldn't have gotten cancer. So what do? We have to have a contrast in cause place that relation. We have to say her moderate smoking as opposed to not smoking causes her cancer as opposed to not cancer, but her moderate smoking as opposed to her heavy smoking does not cause her cancer as opposed to not cancer. Another example, Karen's Chip gets poisoned and Karen gives him an antidote. Without the antidote, he'll die in a day. With the antidote, he lives for a year, but then dies of complications. Did Karen cause Jim to die in a year? Whoa, wait a minute. If that's the case, you're not going to be guilty of murder. You don't do that. So you have to say that Karen's giving him the antidote caused Jim to die in a year instead of a day. Karen's giving him the antidote did not cause him to die in a year as opposed to 30 years. So again, we need these contrasts in order to make sense of things like that. So let's apply this model now to actions. I apologize for the baseball example, but it's the one I had worked up, and so I'll run with it, and I hope that people know enough about baseball to follow. Mickey Mantle, at bat, gets a pitch low and outside. So he hits a home run into the first furthest stands beyond the outfield. Now notice this chart that's on the bottom of your screen, I hope, will explain what's going on. Anytime he does mental,
5 minutes left.
Realized either by the physical 1, 2, or 3, but whenever he does the mental event, he hits a home run. So mental, whereas it's the physical event of P1 instead of P2 that causes him to hit it into the first tier instead of the second tier or the third tier. So we have the mental event causing him to hit a home run, mental event as opposed to not having that mental event, that is anticipating the pitch, causing him to hit a home run as opposed to not hitting a home run. Whereas the physical event, realizer number 1, causes him to hit it instead of 2, causes him to hit it into the first tier instead of the second tier. I'm going to skip these next two because I'm running out of time and I want to just draw the conclusion. What do we have now? We have the mental event causes him to hit a home run as opposed to not, whereas the physical event, the realizer, as opposed to a different realizer with the same mental event, causes him to hit it into the first tier instead of the second. Now we have an effect. He hit a home run into the first tier, which gets caused by two different things, a mental cause and a physical cause. But there's no redundancy because they're relative to different contrasts, so they include different information. There's no overdetermination because the physical and the mental are not really independent, since one of them actually is a realizer of the other. We also can keep closure. Every physical event has a physical cause relative to some contrast, so we don't have to give up physical closure. We can remain physicalists. And I also think that this contrastive causation appears with contemporary science and with theories of probability, because probabilities are always relative to contrast classes as well. I can't go into that, but I hope that this picture of how mental causation works can help solve the problem and respond to the challenge within the confines of the way science is done. It won't solve the problem of free will. It won't solve the problem of timing. Those deserve extra attention as you're giving them in this conference. But at least with regard to this one challenge to free will and moral responsibility, I think the contrasting answer helps. Thanks.